The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters radio show was originally broadcast on October 19th, 2021.
Aloha and good morning, Maui. This is the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters radio show, sponsored by Mokulele Airlines. I'm your host, Pamela Tumpa, president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce. Today, we're going to talk about some of the negative messaging between government, residents, and visitors, and what efforts are being made to overcome this and to overcome cancellations. We're going to talk about statewide results from the COVID Mitigation Business Survey, effects on our economic recovery, and visitor industry impacts since the Delta variant, and how businesses can best prepare moving forward. And we're going to speak with local business owner from Lanai Island. So we're going to have a lot of fun this morning. Actually, we're waiting for Keith Regan of Hawai'i Tourism Authority to call in. But in the meantime, what I'd like to do is share with you a really important program that we're helping with at the Maui Chamber of Commerce. And there's a statewide program that's been discussed on this show before where they are converting old computers, laptops, iPads, other technology, anything that you have that people can access the internet through. What we are doing is the state has a program where they're training people in digital literacy. So folks who need help with telemedicine, folks who need help with wanting to gain new computer skills, they are taking these computer donations and working to get them in the hands of people taking these digital literacy classes. So they're refurbishing the donations so that the computers are refreshed, ready to access the internet and upgraded. And then for those who can't afford a computer but really need them, again, for their children's schoolwork, for getting access to new workplace skills for adults, to seniors who are wanting to get online so that they're not so disconnected, and those who need help with telemedicine, you can make a positive difference in their lives by donating an old computer, laptop, iPad, etc. that can be refurbished to give them that access. If you have such a piece of equipment and are willing to donate it, right now they're doing a fundraising program for the island of Lanai. They're going to have a class coming up in November, and we could really use some computers for that. Please call the Maui Chamber of Commerce at 244-0081, 244-0081, or email office, OFFICE, at Maui Chamber, MAUICHAMBER.com. This is a project of the Broadband Hui, and we are happy to join in and help. All right, I believe Keith is on the line, so let me give him a warm introduction. Keith is the Hawai'i Tourism Authority's Chief Administrative Officer. He is responsible for overseeing HTA's operations, including administrative and fiscal management functions relating to contracts, budgets, program planning and effectiveness, information technology systems, and personnel, as well as all financial management functions for the operation and the maintenance of the Hawaii Convention Center. Good morning, Keith, and welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning, Pam. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
We're so excited to have you, and you had a big meeting yesterday. Do you want to take a quick minute to tell people what was going on yesterday? And it's still continuing, I know, but HTA's role in the meeting.
Yeah, certainly. You know, yesterday we had a meeting with the Senate Ways and Means Committee at the Paina building at the Maui College. We had an opportunity, to share with the senators a little bit about some of the activities going on at the HTA and some of the great work that's been going on related to the destination management action plans, that we've all been working on very closely. I know yourself, you've been very active, Pam, in support of that steering committee and all the great work that's been going on about that. And, it was just really a great opportunity to share with the senators, all of the different programs that we've been supporting and pushing forward on, and answering some really important questions about the activities of the Hawai'i Tourism Authority and in particular the visitor industry and some of the challenges that we've been facing.
It was a really great meeting, and I know we're going to talk about the DMAP, which is the Destination Management Action Plan. We call it affectionately the DMAP. But yeah, thank you for sharing that, Keith, because it was a great meeting yesterday, and exciting to have them here touring Maui. One of the things I wanted to kind of start with this morning is, throughout COVID, the state. This is an issue statewide. Many residents have been blaming visitors for rising case counts. And, we know that it is really under 1%, like a fraction of 1%. How do we change the messaging, or how do we help residents overcome this perception that, COVID is really being exacerbated by visitors when actually it has grown and been exacerbated by our own residents? How do we deal with that and help people better understand that?
Yeah, I think that's the $1 million question, right? I mean, because we're very, the statistics, show that in fact, much of the spread of COVID is coming from residents who've traveled, not necessarily visitors coming into the state. It's actually, tracked back to a lot of resident travel, and then spreading amongst, sort of friends and family, once they get back,
right.
From wherever it is that they were traveling. And so, I think really it's about, about other residents communicating that, when you do travel, to take precautions and make sure you're vaccinated and, and then just sharing, the numbers, right? I mean, because, there's a lot of data that's being tracked, right, throughout this process. And, the numbers, I mean, we hear this, like, the numbers don't lie, right? I mean, the
right.
numbers tell the truth, and you can see, where a lot of these cases, and especially sort of like these clusters that have been happening, where they originated from. And it wasn't necessarily from a visitor that brought it in and then, somehow spread it to, residents, but more so, residents traveling, coming back, and then spreading it and creating clusters. So, again, I think, a lot of it goes back to, Department of Health and the public information officers that are part of that process, making sure that, what is communicated out there is very clear about where these clusters are coming from, where their origination, where they're originating from.
I agree. And people, I think everybody can get to the Department of Health website to find these stats. Is that correct?
Can. That's right. That's right. Yeah, there's a lot of great information actually out there. They have dashboards. They have all kinds of data and statistics that, the average person can take a look at and quickly understand.
So, we want to encourage folks, if this is, when your perception, and it's been many people's perceptions, and it's okay, what we want to try and do is educate people on where you can find the data. And you can go to the Department of Health website. You can look at their dashboard. We want people to understand, because what's happening is, there's times where we hear things and we spread things, and then later out we find, oh, maybe that wasn't quite accurate. I know I've certainly done that. And, research is coming at us fast and furiously. And so we keep working to try and correct it and make sure that we're getting the right information out. And so look at that data, because we want to make sure that we're not sending the wrong perception or feeling sort of anti-visitor sentiments around, there's other issues that we're addressing, but when things keep adding up and being combined into things that lead to sort of an anti-visitor sentiment, and some of those inputs are not correct, it's really important to understand.
Right.
Yeah, and so we really want to encourage you to do that. And then, of course, we want to encourage, we've been hearing more, again, the governor's been sharing and the mayor's been sharing, that it's, and different people in meetings you and I sit in, we hear it a lot. It's less than 1%. Mm-hmm. So, but I think I guess our role would be to continue those leaders and elected officials and State Department of Health reps to continue to be more clear on that.
Yeah, and I think what we're noticing is that, there are many visitors coming in that are fully vaccinated, right?
Right.
And they're also taking tests. And so, they are taking precautions, right? I mean, the visitors, there's, just coming from Oahu to Maui yesterday, there's a lot of, steps, that are still in place to keep our residents safe, right? I mean, throughout this whole process. When I say keep our residents safe, I mean anybody traveling, right, into the state. because it could be residents and visitors traveling, right? And so, yesterday coming in, even though I flew inter-island, I still had to show my vaccination card,
right?
And I still had to show my proof of travel. So, I'm sorry, no, I had to show my vaccination card when I went into the lounge, actually. So even going into Hawaiian Airlines lounge, you got to show your vaccination card. But I had to show proof that I traveled inter-island before I could even leave the airport yesterday, and my identification card. Right. So, there are these checks in place, right, to prevent and keep people compliant, right, with the rules.
Right. And mask wearing is still happening.
Mask wearing
is still happening. Right? Yep. Except when we're, taking a drink or something, mask wearing is still happening. So, yep. Lots of great precautions. Yeah, thank you for that, because, we want people to understand, and we want to get the correct messaging out and help people, continue to also remember to be safe and do those things.
Right.
Another issue that you and we at the Chamber of Commerce and other chambers have experienced is when Governor Ige put out a message, asking tourists not to come to the islands because hospitals and intensive care units were filling up with COVID-19 patients, and it was kind of a risky time to be traveling at that point. We've seen a lot of challenges with that. And, we understand what the governor was trying to do. He was very worried. Our case counts were at a high. A lot of things, as you point out, were already being done to be more safe. But we've seen some backlash in terms of businesses, not just accommodations, large and small activity groups and event groups have seen huge cancellations. So now, how do we overcome this messaging? We're starting to, Governor's starting to talk about reopening. How do we overcome this? How do we remarket Hawaii to welcome visitors back? And what plans are in place to do that and, again, increase the market, which is traditionally good for us in November and December?
Right. A lot of it is making sure that the branding messages that are going out into those markets, are sharing the proper information, right, with those markets. So when you look at what Hawaii Tourism Authority has put together in terms of its branding message, it's really about malama. It's about caring for the residents, caring for the communities that you're visiting when you're coming here, interacting in an appropriate way, and really, talking about this whole concept of malama ku'uhome, which is really about caring for our home, right? And so, conveying that message, I think, is really important, and that is exactly what our branding message has been formed around, is this whole concept of malama, right? And malama dovetails into kuleana, which is, responsibility, right? So you have responsibility to, take precautions as visitors, right? You have this, yes, we want you to come, we want you to visit Hawaii, but we want you to do it in a safe way. We want you to do it in a way that is going to keep our residents protected. And that means, making sure that you're vaccinated, making sure that, you comply with, our requirements, which may not be the same requirements as where you're coming from, right? So, and that means mask wearing when you're in public or when you're in a restaurant. That means, showing your vaccination card. That means, taking these additional precautionary steps. And that is all incorporated now into the messaging that we're ready to push forward on. We've already developed creatives that speak to this, right? So we're ready to push that out into those markets. But what I think is really important, just for your listeners to really understand about Hawaii Tourism Authority, we're not, with our brand, we are really a branding organization, right? We're not selling anything. We don't have an ad for, come to Hawaii for $4.99, round trip, 3-night hotel or 5-night hotel. We don't actually sell anything. What we do is we brand, and we want to make sure that our brand message is accurate and that it is delivering the message that we want it to deliver, right? It's kind of like, when you think about Coca-Cola, I'll just use this as an example. They're branding, right? When you see their ads on TV, it's a brand ad, right? They're not saying go to Safeway, go to Foodland, go to Times and pick up a 6-pack or a 12-pack of, Coke or Diet Coke for, $4.99. right? I mean, it's really about the brand that they
Right.
want and the message that they want to deliver. Similarly for us, when you look at the messaging that we're putting out there, it is about, caring for our island home. It is about responsibility. It is about, this is not just a place that you come for, sand, sun, and surf. This is our home, and it has this beautiful culture that is so important to us. This incredible environment that is so important to us, and we need the visitors to help us and understand that when you do come here, you're coming to our home,
Right.
and that is all incorporated. When you look at the messaging that's being put out there, that we're going to be putting out there, it's clear, in those creatives, the type of message that we're trying to deliver. Because at the end of the day, we want respectful visitors. We want,
Absolutely.
we're calling them mindful, right? Mindful visitors. That's the jargon that we're using now to describe the type of visitor that we're looking for to come to Hawaii. Actually, we're always looking for respectful and mindful visitors, right? And unfortunately, with the pandemic and the opening, and some of the reduced airfares that were provided out there, and and also this tremendous pent-up demand,
Right.
and the fact that you can only get domestic travelers, right? Because essentially the international market is completely shut down.
Right.
And I know that Maui is not necessarily a large beneficiary of the international market, but Canada plays a huge role, right? In the Maui market, the Canadian visitors are really important. And
Absolutely.
but my point is that we saw a visitor kind of over the summer when things opened up that maybe they weren't quite the mindful, respectful visitor that we were looking for. But that wasn't all of them, right? I mean, it was, you always have
Absolutely.
a few, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And unfortunately, they spoil it for the rest. But at the end of the day, it's really about sort of our branding and the message that we're putting out there. We can't prevent people from traveling here, but what we can do is really encourage the right people to come to Hawaii.
Right. I think that's a very good point. And it's something that we're all struggling with, is how do we better do that? When those creatives are ready, please let us know. As a Chamber of Commerce, we get so much visitor traffic because in many regions, the local chamber is the local visitors bureau. Not true here because our visitor industry is so large in Hawaii. But we'd be happy to share those creatives on our website as well.
Well, we appreciate that tremendously. The other part, too, that I think we've not really pushed forward on as much as we probably should, and this is actually changing, is sharing what it is that we are in fact branding out there with our local market, right? So that to your point, Pam, I think obviously you're pushing forward on our creatives would help us reach out right beyond Hawaii, but I think you have a lot of local members, right, that
Absolutely.
will be able to see these creatives and be, oh wow, I didn't realize that this was HTA's message, right? I always thought it was something different. So we would really appreciate that, Pam. Thank you so much.
Yeah, our pleasure, and of course in social media and all that. But I think you're absolutely right. It's also I think you'll find that many people don't know, and that's this new realm, right? And I know you guys are working really hard, and you did through the DMAP process to bring people together to really have an informed community position. And so, I love that you're open to doing that. And now, can you share with us kind of with the great energy that you united everybody in a DMAP process? There was, yes, we had a steering committee that I had the pleasure of sitting on, but there were also open community meetings. Can you tell people about where the DMAP is going now and some of the Maui programs that are underway and statewide efforts?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. We've completed all 6 destination management action plans for the state. So there's one essentially on every island, right? And for Maui Nui, we've got the Maui Island Destination Management Action Plan. We've got the Molokai Destination Management Action Plan. And we actually also have the Lanai Destination Management Action Plan. And these plans, as you know, Pam, really were born from public these steering committees. So we're members of the public, right, that, actually went out there, got as much information as they could about some of the issues that were happening out there in the community, and really trying to get a voice around sort of the future of tourism, right, for those communities.
Right.
And that was really the purpose of these destination management action plans. It really kind of goes back to the strategic plan that HTA did and the board adopted back in January of 2020. And I don't know if you recall, but we actually went to all of the islands to seek input to help inform the development of that 5-year strategic plan. And through that process, it was identified that the community, and this is a common thread, through every island that we visited, that the community wanted a greater voice in the future of tourism, right, in those communities. So,
right.
And then came the destination management action plans out of that. And, there are literally hundreds of actions and sub-actions that are part of these plans. So throughout the state, we're partnering with our local visitor bureaus, we're partnering with the counties, we're partnering with the various different state departments, our public and private sector partners, like yourself, to move these actions and sub-actions forward. And a lot of these sub-actions and actions relate to the impacts that tourism has had. And Maui County is no different, right? I mean, Maui has, a significant number of actions and sub-actions. I'll just give you a good example. And one of them is, this one action is talking about sort of the communications program and how do we educate visitors, before they come and after they arrive, right, on Maui.
Right.
And this is moving forward. Like, we're already working very closely with the airlines. We've convened, I should say, a group to talk about messaging. How do we get those messages delivered in the right way, right, to these visitors that are potentially coming to Hawaii? And this goes as far as putting ads or running sort of messaging on apps that maybe Expedia has, or these online travel organizations that that people book their tickets through, where it can sort of push out messaging. Hawaiian Airlines, you probably just saw that they also put a video now that's available that kind of shows visitors sort of like this whole thing about Malama and Kuleana, and what is their responsibility when they come in.
Right.
I know Alaska Airlines also has messaging that they're pushing out. But, these are the kinds of things that have come from the destination management action plans, that, really sort of catalyzed, right? It really sort of like galvanized us into, finding ways to move forward in solving these issues, right? And these concerns that were brought up, from the community. And that's powerful, right? I mean, when you see a plan that is actually, being implemented, not just sitting on a shelf someplace gathering dust.
I said that yesterday. This is one of those first things that's really moving.
Yeah, it's I think we just came out with our summer update. This is obviously we're almost in fall. We're going to be coming out with our fall update, but many of the actions and sub-actions for Maui and Maui Nui are underway.
Absolutely.
In fact, like our summer update, when you look at it, of the 23 sub-actions, which is in
Wait, Keith, I'm going to have you summarize for us because we're a little over time. But,
I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
Long story short, over 70% of them are underway. So 70% of the phase 1, actions and sub-actions are actually underway. And that to me is just, it's like I said, it's powerful, that this plan is actually moving forward. It's not sitting on a shelf collecting dust.
Amen to that. 'Cause with all the work that goes into these plans, we want to, what planning is important, but action is what counts. And thank you for the great work that you and HTA are doing. We were pleased to participate with so many amazing community members in this. And thank you for capturing the voice of each island, and of course here from Maui, and moving that swiftly forward. We'll bring you back on and get additional updates.
Yeah, we appreciate that, Pam, and we're happy to participate. Thank you so much for all you're doing for Maui, and thank you, for your leadership and your partnership.
Thank you. We appreciate partnering with you, too. Have a great Maui day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Aloha. We'll be right back after a message from Mokulele Airlines.
Mokulele Airlines operates the largest commuter airline hub in the country, right here in Kahului. Fly Mokulele from Kahului to Molokai, Lanai, Hana, Waimea, Kona, and now Hilo. Mokulele also operates the only flights between Kapalua and Honolulu. There is never a middle seat on Mokulele, and every seat has a window and aisle. Visit mokuleleairlines.com and take your next flight from the newly renovated Mokulele Terminal.
And we're back. I'd like to welcome back Dr. Carl Bonham. He is a founding member of UHERO, the Economic Research Organization at the University of Hawaii, and currently serves as UHERO's Executive Director and Professor of Economics. Carl's research interests include macroeconomics, applied econometrics and forecasting, tourism economics, and the Hawaii economy. Good morning, Carl, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Pam. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
We're doing great. Everybody's, I think, feeling a little bit relieved as case counts continue to come down, and we continue to see relaxation of some of the restrictions. So, we're sort of getting back to where things felt in May and June.
Yes, and you're right. That is feeling really good.
Yes.
And you've just done a COVID mitigation business survey. Can you share some of the statewide results with us on that survey?
Sure. So this was work that was really initiated by the Pacific Alliance Against COVID and UHERO fellow Ruben Juarez and some of his colleagues in JABSOM. And it's a follow-up survey, right? We did a business survey before some of the mandates were put into place for employees and some of the vaccine passports. And basically what we found was that where vaccine mandates exist in businesses, we saw a significant increase in vaccination rates amongst employees. Roughly 8% increase in vaccination rates statewide. On Maui, the increase was larger. It was a little over 10% increase in employees vaccinated after mandates went into effect. And one of the interesting things that I noticed in the vaccination data was that after the Safer Outside and the Safe Access Oahu program started. So those both, they both were announced, I think it was September 9th, and then they started, I think it was a Wednesday and a Friday in mid-September, September 13th and 15th. They went into effect. And the rate of people statewide initiating vaccinations that week was the highest it had been since early in when vaccinations were available. It more than doubled from what it was in early July, and it made a big difference in getting us to where we are today statewide at the high level of vaccination. That's contributing to reopening and contributing to higher capacity utilization rates, whether it's an outdoor wedding or in a business. So it really feels much more optimistic than things did just a month or a month and a half ago.
Yeah, I am continually hearing, and of course we're continually seeing, as you point out, with the relaxation of some of the mandates now, that we're on a better track as we move forward. We've been seeing a lot of demonstrations and people talking about, wanting to protect their right to not get vaccinated. But as we've been going through, the data is really showing, hey, these huge jumps have really contributed significantly to our reopening. And
absolutely. And if you think about what, now we're talking about having spectators back into sporting events. Admittedly, the start of those programs are incredibly small numbers of fans in the stands. It seems a little, I have to say, it seems a little bit ridiculous that you're only going to have 1,000 people outdoor with masks on who are all fully vaccinated and socially distanced. It certainly seems like that we ought to be able to do better, and I'm sure we will. But being able to do things like bring back the marathon, all of these things matter a great deal. And some of us would have liked to have seen them happen faster,
Right.
but they're happening.
Right, and I'm excited to see them happening. We've got there's a large group here in Maui that is not interested in being vaccinated, and
Right.
and it's been a challenge, and so I think we're still lagging behind some of the things because again, where we're seeing these successes is when we've got vaccinated people with vaccinated people, and still taking safe precautions. So when we see that, we are seeing more reopening.
And we obviously we still need to be cautious. There's huge uncertainties still around what the next wave might look like.
Right.
And it's true that Maui is less vaccinated than the rest of the state, and that puts Maui at risk. When there's another wave, and there almost certainly will be another wave, hopefully it will be very modest and it won't break through vaccines or anything like that. But presumably there will be a wave in the winter at some point, and the less vaccinated we are, the more vulnerable we are. So we still have to be careful and practice good practices.
Right, that's so important. Well, that kind of leads into, where we've just come through. You've been doing research on changes as a result of the Delta variant, which kind of smacked us really hard during this time. And so what has that done to our economic recovery and visitor industry impact?
Well, throughout this whole year and a half, really the virus and the waves have dominated business activity, and that has if you look at the recovery in jobs that happened statewide and even more pronounced on Maui after we opened up to safe travels, we were growing jobs statewide faster than the U.S. Once we got tourism restarted again, and of course that accelerated in the summer, particularly on Maui, and then it ended.
Right.
And statewide jobs fell by over 6,000 in August. We don't have the September data yet.
Right.
We'll get that later this week. But our we do these things where we forecast numbers that we ought to already have, but they're not available from the official statistics, and those are called nowcasts. So you're forecasting what's happening right now. Actually, at this point, we're talking about September. We think there's going to be another 5,000 or 6,000 decline in jobs in September. Maui was actually the only county that didn't lose jobs in August. All the other counties shed jobs. But the drop in visitors that happened in July, really started at the end of July. You don't see it in the monthly data, but in accelerated in August and particularly September. It was more than double what you would have expected just from seasonal change. Right, we always see a decline in visitors in September, and in September of 2021, we saw about a 40% drop in visitors from the summer peak. In a normal year, it would have been about 15-16%.
Right.
And so it was really a setback. And we expect that what we've seen is a loss of jobs, a slight increase in people, well, not a slight increase, but an increase in people with reduced hours. And all this came at a time when the federal support ended.
Right.
Right. It couldn't have been worse timing to have people getting dropped from all the federal unemployment insurance support programs and simultaneously having a cutback in hiring in hours throughout the tourism industry. But we think it's going to be very short term. And, I'm cautiously optimistic that that we're going to see a strong Thanksgiving. The October numbers are coming in pretty strong right now. Not as strong as they would have in a normal year,
Right.
But bouncing back from the September numbers. So if you looked at the data for September, Maui, so daily visitors arriving direct into Kahului was about 4,800 visitors per day, and through the first half of October, it's 5,500.
Okay, great.
So things are moving in the right direction, and I'm cautiously optimistic that I think Maui will see a very good Christmas season and New Year's, and then from there on, right, it's really a matter of what happens with the next wave of COVID.
Yeah. So, it's good to hear that as we're gearing up for this holiday season, and it sounds like, you're looking at this as being, we're going to recover, and it should be a much better time than we've seen, especially over these last couple of months, which is, as you said, the shoulder period. So historically, kind of September, October are a little bit lower, but glad to hear about the rebound and through the holiday season. What are you expecting moving into 2022?
Continued gradual improvement, and there's some real huge wild cards for 2022, and many of those. I mean, first and foremost, of course, as I've already mentioned, is whether there's another wave, and
right.
Because assuming that there is another wave, it will impact us, even if we, are at 85% vaccinated.
Right.
Even if we're not having hospitals overburdened, another wave will cause economic impacts across the country and around the world, and it will have the economic impacts will be in those places that have the lowest vaccination rates, and they will see surges in cases and surges in hospitalizations, and their business activity will diminish, and people will reduce their travel, and all of those things will happen, and so that's really the wild card. So what we've been doing is we've been doing scenarios that, and in our most optimistic scenario, we've really we've sort of smashed this one down for the last time, and really that scenario looks at us getting much closer to being back to normal by the end of next year or mid 2023. And a more pessimistic one is one where we get another wave and it breaks through vaccinations, and we deal with this sort of whack-a-mole again, sort of over and over. So that really all you can do is plan, right, for different scenarios, different alternatives.
Right.
We're cautiously optimistic. I personally think that in Hawaii we're going to do better and better as we get these higher and higher vaccination rates, even as you have hot spots throughout the country.
Awesome. What do you think businesses should do in this scenario to best prepare? I mean, I realize there's a range of scenarios, but given what you're thinking of,
the other things that I didn't mention in terms of the uncertainty. So much of this, again, we're sort of getting back to where a lot of the uncertainty is going to be coming out of D.C.
Right.
And what happens with, if you think about one world where none of President Biden's plans get passed. That's pretty extreme. I don't think that's very likely. Then that has significant repercussions for Hawaii, and it means much less in infrastructure spending for things that we desperately need to spend money on, whether it's roads or bridges, or we're dealing with climate change, or preparing grids for renewable energy, all kinds of things. And the other is things like an extension of the child tax credit that could make so much difference for the vulnerable. So let me answer your question: what should businesses be doing? Well, I think first and foremost, businesses know better what they should be doing than me. Right? I'm just an economist. But what we do know is that vaccinations work, masks work, these protocols that have been put in place work, and educating your employees if that's needed is crucial. And keeping your business operating and not having it disrupted by COVID outbreaks, and keeping your employees safe. To me, that's going to be paramount as we move forward, and as we potentially face the next wave. And then obviously you also have to be prepared for the possibility that things turn south. Right. And so that means cautious and in terms of spending plans, we should not be expecting to repeat the summer of 2021. Right. In the summer of 2022, U.S. visitors will be able to travel many other places. They'll be able to go to Canada. They'll be able to go to Asia. They'll be able to go to Europe. And it's really none of our forecasts have the U.S. visitor market performing in summer of 2022 like it did in summer of 2021. We do expect international, so hopefully we'll on Maui we'll see some Canadians and some Australians and some folks from New Zealand and elsewhere. But don't think that that's going to repeat itself and there's going to be a rush of spending like there was last summer.
That's really helpful because, what we saw early on in the pandemic is because we had such a strong 2019, people made huge investments in putting in inventory. Retail was off the charts, so people had bought a lot of inventory at the end of the year, gearing up for a spectacular March in 2020. And, of course, then COVID hits, and then they were devastated, had huge amounts of inventory. And so, again, as you said here, as we look into summer, and it's really important to know, again, we saw some of that come back. It was great. We started to shore up some of those huge losses. But that planning really helps so that they can think about what they're buying and gearing up for moving forward, being a little bit more cautious, thinking through their planning, and not expect the same return that we saw this summer. So that's a huge help, Carl.
Yeah, I know we're almost out of time, but there is one, of course, there's always a caveat, right? There's, the other issue with inventory right now is can you get the inventory? Right? It depends on what you're stocking. Right. Obviously with some of the shipping bottlenecks, it can be a real challenge. And then a final thing that we're learning, we still have a lot to learn about what the heck is going on in the labor market. Yes. And what does seem to be, basically the labor market has turned completely on its head. COVID did this to so many, to so many different parts of our lives. And keeping employees and, you think about an employee-employer relationship is a contract that both sides have to win. Right. And really one of the things that seems to be happening is that employees have more power than they have in the past, and they want different working relationships, right? They want more flexible hours. They want to be able to work from home some, and businesses are having to adjust, and the ones that adjust the most quickly and establish and maintain really strong employee relationships will be ones that are more successful.
Good point. Carl, always a pleasure to have you on our show. We'd love to have you back again soon.
I would welcome that. Well, hopefully it won't be too long.
No, well, we'll reach out to you. I know your schedule's crazy busy, but we'll reach out to you and kind of schedule something again soon. And thank you for the great update. We really appreciate it.
Have a great day.
You too. Aloha.
Aloha.
Mokulele Airlines operates the largest commuter airline hub in the country, right here in Kahului. Fly Mokulele from Kahului to Molokai, Lanai, Hana, Waimea, Kona, and now Hilo. Mokulele also operates the only flights between Kapalua and Honolulu. There is never a middle seat on Mokulele, and every seat has a window and aisle. Visit mokuleleairlines.com and take your next flight from the newly renovated Mokulele Terminal.
We're back, and I am pleased to welcome Cory Lovejoy. What a fabulous last name. I love that last name. From the beautiful island of Lanai. Cory is the owner of Orchid Speed Lanai, and her creations involve using vintage and found fabrics. Good morning, Cory.
Good morning, Pamela. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful, too. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Oh, we're thrilled to have you on the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Tell everybody about Orchid Speed Lanai and how you got started and where your inspiration came from.
So I actually got started with this business as a child.
Really?
Yeah, my grandmother was a seamstress, and she would watch us while my mother was at work, and that's who taught me how to sew.
Oh.
So that started my lifelong love affair with sewing and fabric collecting.
Uh-huh.
And then as a teenager, I would go to like the garage sales or the Hawai'i sales, and I would collect vintage fabric.
Wow.
And then I had a short career as like a massage therapist at the Manila Bay Hotel, which is how I ended up on Lanai.
Uh-huh.
And then I had an injury, and I actually was looking for another career, and a friend of mine suggested that I make bags. So I broke into my vintage fabric collection and started making one-of-a-kind zippered bags and metal frame clutches.
Your products are stunning. So
Oh, thank you so much.
they're really stunning. So now you're living on Lanai.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, we all live in the islands, a small island community. How are you finding all of these vintage fabrics?
So it's mostly from my collection that I started as a teenager. So it's like 20-something years of fabric collection. Which is a lot. And then on occasion, people, because they know what I do, so people will offer me things or they'll bring things by the house. And I also work with vintage clothing.
Uh-huh.
So every once in a while, I'll go to like the thrift shops just to check and see if there's anything good there.
That is so fun. My mom and I years ago used to garage sell, and we love doing stuff like that, finding the unique treasures. And unfortunately, for a couple of years, we haven't had a chance to do it. But I mean, that would be like a dream activity for me to get to do that and make it your business. But people can donate to you. So we're going to get to that at the end and let people know how they can donate to you in case they have some unique fabrics and would like to see some of those spectacular patterns repurposed. Tell people a little bit more about your products.
So I know a lot of people make bags these days, which is awesome. Mine are a little different though, because I don't have a particular size.
Uh-huh.
I make the bag based on the available amount of fabric that I have because I work with a lot of smaller pieces or like clothing that I deconstruct.
Right.
Or I either fussy cut, which is a term for picking a cherry picking a particular part of the pattern to make into a bag. So it's based on the amount of fabric or the print of the fabric.
Right.
And each bag I pick a lining for, so each bag has a different lining. And then after I design it and sew it all up, I put on a little zipper pull that is also unique to each bag.
So when you buy one of your amazing products, somebody buys them, it really is one of a kind. There isn't going to be a match.
It's 100% one of a kind. I also have various amounts of different color zippers, and that will get picked when it's time to put on the zipper. So it's not really planned out. It's kind of this, this looks nice together, and then I put it together.
Well, it's a creative process. You're doing it as it unfolds. Yeah, that's awesome.
Exactly.
Wow. So now, how many years have you been doing this?
Oh my goodness. Probably over 10 years. I did spend my early 20s while I was going to MCC. I would also sell, I wasn't using vintage fabric at the time. It was mostly Hawaiian fabric, but I would also sell bags that I was making underneath the banyan tree in Lahaina.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's maybe how I first started selling them.
Oh, wow. So, but at this point, you've got quite a following.
Yeah, I do. So it's it's all me. I do every aspect of the business. So I know I have people who are fans, but I don't have my product out in too many shops.
So, so tell me, how do people, since they're one of a kind, because again, and they're limited because you're making them all on your own, and they're all unique and custom made, and very original. So how many bags do you typically have at a particular time? And then do you take client requests, or can people see some of the fabrics that maybe you have in stock and say that they're interested in something in particular? Or can people donate a fabric and have you make something?
Yeah, so the amount of bags I have varies. Like if I'm preparing for a festival or an event, I'll have a few hundred.
Okay.
In the interim, I might have like between 30 or 40 like in my Etsy shop. But I also have them in Lanai City at my Carroll Gallery, the Local Gentry, and the Lanai Art Center. So that also takes a lot of my inventory.
Yes.
So it just really kind of depends what's going on. The best way to kind of see what I'm up to is on Instagram. And my handle for that is orchid_speed. Or you can search the hashtag Lanai Made. And you can always DM me there if you have like a request, or like if you have, I've had people reach out to me saying like, oh, I have a huge stash of fabric. Would you be interested in it? Or you can email me at orchidspeedlanai@gmail.com.
Okay, orchidspeedlanai. So I love that people can see what you're up to. Do you show on your Instagram actually making some of the bags?
I have, like, I love to post in my Instagram stories when I'm sewing. Like, I'll kind of post, like, this is what came fresh off the sewing machine today, or this is what I'm working on today. And then sometimes I'll do, like, we turned one of our spare bedrooms into my studio. So, like, I'll sometimes do, like, studio tours.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool. So tell people again where they can email you if they want to donate fabric or talk to you or see some things that you've got and talk to you about a special bag.
So Orchid Speed LNY, sorry, it's not Lanai, it's the airport code. So Orchid Speed LNY @gmail.com, or you can go to Instagram and look under my handle, orchid_speed. You can direct message me there. There's also a link in my bio to my Etsy shop where you can also send me a message there as well.
Awesome. Well, Cory, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. That is all the time we've got for Business Matters, but we are always thrilled to be with you each and every Tuesday morning, sponsored by Mokulele Airlines. I'm Pamela Tumpop, president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, wishing Cory and all of you listening blessings and best wishes for a beautiful Maui day.